Okay, so who knows what OTARD stands for? Over the air reception devices. Basically, it's a fancy acronym for these, well, in this case, little tiny, basically 4G, 5G antennas that they're going to plunk on your houses. The thing is, it's a misnomer. They're not just reception devices, like if you're going to get satellite, they're a transmitting device too. And that's where the problem comes in. The FCC snuck in a ruling that has allowed homeowners on private property now to have these things installed. And basically, they're going to put out extremely strong levels of pulse modulated microwave radiation starting at 60 gigahertz. Very dangerous frequency. It's something we've never, as a population, been exposed to, and a lot of concerns. And Elizabeth Kelley, Libby can answer a lot of questions about that. So we're going to just take 3 quick minutes and show a little video. This is put out by Americans for Responsible Technology. And should I just share my screen and show it?
Yeah, if you have it queued up. Yeah,
I do have it queued up, yep. All righty. And I want you to know that the people that made this, they're gonna make us a special one that we can actually use. We're working on it this week. So this is just an explanation of these OTARD.
The deployment of 5G technology is going to require the construction of hundreds of thousands of new wireless antennas in close proximity to where people live, work, and play. In some neighborhoods, there may not be any telephone poles, streetlights, or other structures on which to place these new wireless antennas. And putting up new poles is expensive and often requires permits or zoning variances. It's a real problem for the wireless companies, but they have an idea. Suppose they could place their wireless 5G antennas right on the top of one of the homes in a neighborhood. Maybe the home of someone who loves technology, is happy to take the money, and isn't worried about any health consequences. It turns out the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, has an old rule called the OTARD rule, which stands for Over-the-Air Reception Device. The rule was adopted as part of the 1996 Telecommunications Act, and it prohibits any local authority or private landlord from restricting the right of homeowners or tenants to install a satellite dish or other antenna to receive video. Back in 2002, in response to the fast-growing internet, the FCC changed the wording of this rule to include transmitting antennas as well as receiving antennas. But even then, the antenna had to be primarily for use by the tenant or homeowner. The OTARD rule has never, ever applied to transmitting antennas intended to send signals to other people in the neighborhood. Until now. The FCC has quietly proposed a change in the OTARD rule that would cover what they call hubs. This would allow any homeowner to have a 5G wireless antenna installed on his property and, according to the FCC, empower consumers to help bring competitive wireless broadband to their communities by hosting hub sites. Since the antennas will be on private property, there will be no hearing, no notice, no opportunity to object. You might not even know about it, unless, of course, you had a meter to measure the radiation. We think the FCC is vastly exceeding its authority in making this change to the OTARD rule. What Congress originally intended as a way for Americans to get cable TV signals and internet is now being used by wireless companies as a fast and inexpensive way to get their 5G antennas into neighborhoods, even if most of the people don't want them. It's time for the FCC to stop using taxpayer dollars to promote the interests of wireless companies and instead fulfill its mission to protect the health and safety of the American people.
So as you can see, it says call the FCC, tell them this is a terrible idea. Well, unfortunately, this video is now outdated, which is why we're going to be working on a new one that should be out soon. And it's a video that you can share because we believe that the only way right now to protect ourselves from this is to have neighborhood awareness campaigns where people are going out and they're sharing flyers, they're sharing information, they're sharing this video. They're asking, they're explaining the dangers of this, and they're asking people to sign a no OTARD pledge. These are resources that we actually have on our website. And in just a couple minutes, I'll put a link in the chat box of a really good flyer that we've got that you can share with your neighbors. Right now, members from a certain telecommunications company, they are in Tucson and they're in Phoenix, and they are going door to door, and they're giving very attractive pricing on high-speed internet in exchange for putting one of these cute little things on your rooftop. No shielding. They're not telling people about the health effects, and it's impacting neighborhoods. And this is really, really serious. This tower behind me puts off way less than these little antennas because of the proximity. So this is sort of an all hands on deck, a bit of an emergency here. So I would like to give you just a couple updates on what we're doing on fighting this. Aside from the toolkit that we're going to have on our website, is I'm working with a lovely lady. Her name is Sam, and we are doing a 3-minute video. No, I'm sorry, 90-second video that's going to be kind of lighthearted, but with a serious message to warn people about this. And we're so grateful because Andy Topolsky has volunteered, pulled him in to film this for us, because that's what he does. And so we've got a script. I haven't even had a chance to look at it. It just came in my mail, but we've been playing with it. It's going to be great. So we're going to have that, a lot of social media posts until we get shut down. The lady who's helping us has 300,000 followers on Instagram. We're going to push it out. So we'll get all that to you. Now, what we want to do, here's the other thing. This is huge, and we need your help. There are a lot of disparate organizations in Arizona, and we're all kind of fighting the same battle. This 5G piece and the vaccine piece and the shutting down businesses and the masks and just all these loss of freedoms are all part of the same sort of globalist transition that we're seeing happening before our eyes. And a lot of organizations are fighting them, but they're fighting them separately. And they're all doing important work. Citizens for Free Speech, you know, the patriot groups, all the freedom groups, the medical freedom, vaccine information groups. So what we want to do is rally around this OTARD cause, because this is immediate, imminent, and dangerous, and it's going to affect everybody. Once they get through Phoenix and Tucson, within a year, the plan is to blanket all the neighborhoods in Arizona. So we are going to invite all of these organizations to an emergency statewide meeting, probably on May 6th. It depends. We're trying to get Daphne Tackover to speak. And so if she can, it would depend on her schedule. She's behind the lawsuit against OTARD through the Children's Health Defense Fund. So I'd like to show you just a 3-minute video that is, we're gonna ask you guys to help spread to different organizations. We're going to brainstorm who you think could come to this meeting. We want to unite everybody who's like-minded. And then Andrew's got an announcement, and we'll take some quick Q&A, and then we'll get to our presentation. So real briefly, this is a video that is going to go out to organizations, and we're going to ask you to help us spread it.
Hi, I'm Valeri Marsh, Executive Director of Arizonans for Safe Technology, where we've been working with local governments to stop the deployment of dangerous 4G and 5G cell towers in neighborhoods, schools, and parks. We all know these facilities seriously threaten our privacy, public safety, and property values, but now there's an even bigger threat which poses serious harm to families, but which may actually be what's needed to wake people up and unify all of the freedom-loving organizations in Arizona, promoting the very cause your organization is fighting for. The FCC just passed Order 2110, allowing wireless companies to install dangerous, overpowered antennas on the rooftops of private homes. These devices will emit pulsed microwave radiation, which has been scientifically proven to cause DNA damage, neurological disorders, infertility, sleep issues, and a host of other problems, including 9 types of cancer. Right now, salesmen are going door to door, starting with Phoenix and Tucson, offering homeowners wireless internet access at attractive pricing in exchange for allowing them to install these small devices on their rooftops. But what they're not telling homeowners is that these antennas will blanket the neighborhood with millimeter waves at ultra high frequencies, never proven safe and far beyond anything the public has ever been exposed to. These frequencies range from 60 to 80 gigahertz. For basis of comparison, the military uses millimeter waves at 95 gigahertz as a weapon to disperse crowds in seconds. These frequencies can also be used for surveillance of law-abiding citizens and have been known to destroy valuable insects needed to pollinate our plants in agriculture. But it gets worse. According to the FCC, it doesn't matter if neighbors or HOAs or even cities don't want this infrastructure because the antennas will be on private property and preempt any zoning ordinances. And if people start to get sick and want the antennas removed, the contract will already be signed. Finally, users could also be vulnerable to lawsuits from public safety harms to their neighbors. Now, as bad as all of this sounds, there's a great opportunity here for every freedom-loving organization in Arizona to rally around this emergency and sound a clarion call that could unify our efforts in the common goal of restoring freedom, privacy, and democracy in our state. You see, if enough people can learn about the dangers from these devices and how they threaten the values that made our country great, we can avert this disaster in neighborhoods, and people might just get angry enough to take action. That's where you come in. We're calling for a statewide emergency meeting of all of our freedom-loving organizations to stop this threat. At the meeting, we'll share a brief overview presentation and tools that can be used to unite communities to say no to dangerous and invasive technology. We'll then invite a representative from each of the organizations to share a brief description of what you do, providing an opportunity to promote your work and recruit more people to your respective causes, and potentially collaborate with like-minded organizations on strategies and resources that can unite all of us as we fight the battle for freedom in Arizona. Please let me know if you're interested in attending this online meeting, which will be held Thursday, May 6th at 7 p.m. Thank you and God bless.
Okay, so that is the message that we want to send out to all the organizations in Arizona to unite. And what we need from you guys is some input on maybe a specific trusted government official, someone like Guy Phillips or Kristen Engel that have worked with us, or organizations that could get behind this. So we'd like to go to the chat, and we'll have a Q&A in just a moment, but if you could put in certain contacts you think that you or we could send this message to. For example, I'll start Citizens for Free Speech. We have a lot of people in our group from that organization. Arizona Stands United. So just go ahead and right now, just type in, if you would, in the chat box, any organization that we could send this message to come to this meeting and help us fight this. Pamela Hanley, yep.
Where's my chat?
Good, we the people, good. Those of you who are just coming in, we're sort of sounding an alarm throughout the state to let everybody know about this OTARD invasion, these 5G antennas on rooftops. And we need to come up with 30 organizations that we can send this to. I know there's a mom's organization, Moms for Freedom or something like that. Anybody know what that one is? Just whoever you can think of that's a freedom-loving, liberty-minded organization that we can invite to this.
Valerie, this is Dominique. Can I say something? I wasn't sure how to type.
Yeah.
There's an organization that I'm a part of on Facebook that possibly may be interested. It's I can't remember the exact name now, but it's basically a group who are looking to promote going maskless, basically.
Ah, yes. Any anti-mask group.
Yeah.
And how about the vaccine safety groups?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I'm just at the end of the day, I'm so I could probably I'll have to go onto my I'll have to get into my email and then I can get on my Facebook and I could give you a few names. That's the only one I can think of. I think it's like Unmask AZ or I forget now.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
I'll take a look and I'll email you.
Okay, yeah, please, anybody. And also as your as your stuff comes to mind as we're going through the rest of the meeting tonight, just anybody you can think of that we can send this to.
Okay.
Good. Oh, I know, Central Arizona Policy. All right. Oh, and then the homeschool group, AFI, Arizona Families for Home Education. We're just trying to get a record on the chat thread. All right, so feel free to put those in. All right, one announcement about our monthly events that we've had that have been so much fun. We were going to have one the first weekend in May. They've been at my home in Scottsdale, and the Saturday, May 1st happens to be the same date as a really big fundraiser from Arizona Stands Up. They are suing Governor Ducey and the state for a lot of these lockdown policies and just stuff that's just stifling our economy. There are going to be a lot of freedom organizations there. Paul Gosar is one of about 8 speakers. So that is Saturday, May 1st from 6 to 10. It's a bit pricey, but every penny is going toward the lawsuit. It's $125 per plate. So I'm going to be there. I know other people in our group will be there. So we're not having an event on that night. Ben, did we want to try and fit something else in at another date or just skip this month's potluck?
I would like to try to get something else, yeah.
Okay.
And I have someone who will host. So we can talk about that offline. Or we
Okay.
can now.
All right. But just so you know, put it on your radar for May 1st if you want to. It's Arizona Stands Up, and we can actually send that out on a mass email to everybody. Okay, so a couple announcements, and then I'm going to let Andrew talk for a moment. We'll take some Q&A, and we'll get to the best part of our meeting. We need a mole. We need somebody in Tucson or Phoenix who would be willing to call this company that's going around and selling this internet service in exchange for putting a 5G cell tower on the roof, and have them come to your house and just give you the little sales pitch so that we know what we're up against. So we've had some people, but they weren't in the right locations. I'd be willing to do it, but they're not doing Scottsdale yet. So anybody in Phoenix or Tucson who would love to have a visit from a slick salesman and find out what they're telling people.
Valerie, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So when I was watching that video, it did say in some neighborhoods where there are no poles, street lamps, and so forth. Does that mean in the neighborhoods where there are already plenty of street lamps, that they're more focusing on the neighborhoods without all of that infrastructure, or was that maybe just an old portion of the video?
That's an excellent question. Do you know, Libby?
I don't think it makes any difference to them what is already there. They're really competing with the major companies, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, by offering another type of service that does not involve voice communications, by the way. Their service is home internet. So the transmitter on the host roof would communicate with neighboring homes that then would have transmitters that would be supplied by that host transmitter. And the download would be into that home's Wi-Fi system. It provide them with internet. So they claim that they're 10,000 times lower powered than whatever Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile are putting out. So they're really installing a separate infrastructure. And they're looking for host homes on hilltops or rises in land because they'll have greater coverage. And they're looking starting in Phoenix and Tucson door to door. That's right. I did talk with the co-founder of this one company I found out about. I don't say their name loudly because I could get sued for disparagement, but I did talk with them, spent about an hour, and a realtor brought her to my attention, the company to my attention, and she set up the call. So I was just there. We asked a lot of questions. They were very forthcoming until the very end when they realized that maybe we weren't going to be customers. So they told us a great deal about what they're up to. And I would imagine that this company, which is based in Utah, is one of many all over the country that have formed as startup companies to take advantage of this new OTARD rule because it's totally unregulated.
Okay, I was just wondering because my neighborhood does have a lot of street lamps, so I didn't know if that's, you know, like if they rule out my neighborhood because of that, or, you know.
No, they want to be the choice. You know, under the Telecom Act, you can't compete, so you have to let everybody into the market that wants to be in the market. So we already have 3 times numbers of carriers than we need, really, but because of the law, they can all be there in the same place on the same street if they want to. So this company is now coming in, but they're not held back by any local government or zoning requirements. So it's an entirely different infrastructure, much more closer to our, in fact, on top of our homes and right in the middle of our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Okay, so just a quick recap. These companies are going door to door, putting extremely high powered, dangerous 5G cell tower antennas on people's rooftops in exchange for a nice deal on high speed internet. And we've got social media campaigns, videos, flyers, all sorts of stuff to try and alert neighborhoods. And we're going to have a statewide emergency meeting, probably May 6th on a Thursday. And in the chat box are all the organizations that you think would be on board with this, trusted, who could get behind this cause to alert their people and try to unify our efforts at restoring our freedoms here in Arizona. So as I mentioned, Andy Topolsky is going to help us with a phenomenal video. And Andy, you want to just tell us about that? And also you're looking for something as well. So tell us how we can help you.
Well, as far as the video, I want to hear about your script before I go into that. But yeah, I'm all on board to do anything like that. What I think is really interesting, since we're dealing with something that is visible, right? And it's really hard to prove injury and things like that. And so we got to figure out a way to get people emotionally. And, you know, the first thought, because I'm in real estate, is that you attack their bottom line with like the 20% decrease in property value. But another thing, when I had like a really long conversation with Ann, all right, when I talked with Ann, Val, it was just amazing. It was like a couple-hour conversation. It was fantastic. And I would like, if anybody is up to it, and you can be anonymous, you can have your anonymity, you know, but if you want to take pictures or film it and talk about what you know, here it is. Around these cell towers, especially the macro ones, I'm wondering how many of them had lush land with beautiful cacti and plants and things like that. And then they put up the big macro towers, kick up the power. And well, the cacti doctor here in Arizona said that these look like they're burned from the inside out when they're in, a certain range. And so I'm really curious to see if people are noticing differences in their flora and fauna within range of these towers, right? And then if there's enough of that, I mean, this is like, you remember Aaron Brockovich? That was an amazing movie, right? This is like far beyond. This is like a global thing, right? Aaron Brockovich was like bad water with chromium, whatever, in the in this small town, and people were getting sick. But if you can like all of a sudden see, maybe even you have old pictures of like, hey, we're playing in the park and then it was beautiful, and now there's a tower there and it's like a barren wasteland, that would be good stuff, right? And then I've knocked doors, thousands of doors for real estate. So then if I start noticing something like that, I could go and knock doors. So we could knock doors and start like getting deeper into questions. I don't know. The truth is I see like a whole documentary in all of this, and it's also like incredibly frightening as well to even think about doing a documentary on something of this global scale.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Thank you. So sorry.
Take pictures if you got them. If you see dying foliage around towers, and take video, whatever you want. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so Andy, why don't you put your contact info in the chat so people can send them to you? And sometimes too, if you see a tree and it's green on one side and kind of dead on the other, if you look in the direction that the dead part faces, you might find a tower. And if you can get, either a video or a photo of that, that would be fantastic too. So, and also, Andy, are you still looking for stories of people who have been injured or had to sell their home or anything, or do you have enough people to work with?
Oh, no, I mean, I want a lot of people. Julie is in some kind of remote town outside of Cabo San Lucas right now. I don't even think it's for living her best life. I think she's trying to live in some small remote town for the moment. But another issue is people want anonymity, because they know this is beyond Aaron Brockovich, right? So people want anonymity. So that's why I was saying if we could have maybe like some kind of meeting outside of here where we really talk about how deep we want to go in this rabbit hole.
Yeah, we will. All right, but that could go for hours, so we won't do that tonight.
Right.
I want to respect everybody's time. If anybody has questions, how about you put them in the chat box? We're going to go through Libby, Elizabeth Kelley's presentation, and then Ben and I, and Libby, if you can stay afterward and answer any questions on the OTARD or on her presentation. So those of you who don't know, Elizabeth Kelley is the director of the Electromagnetic Safety Alliance. She has been in this battle for how many years, Libby?
25.
Oh my goodness. Great. And then she is the force behind the EMF Medical Conference. They just had their second conference. All the best speakers and doctors in the world who are involved in this have come. It is available. You can actually, you or your healthcare practitioner can pay a very reasonable fee, and you can go through this whole course, this whole conference, and learn how to recognize, diagnose, treat EMF illnesses, because a lot of things are not, doctors don't even know that the cause could be and is EMFs. So Libby's got just a wonderful history. We're thrilled to have you. So she's going to give us a great presentation. And again, just put your questions in the chat box. We'll try and catch them afterwards. So Libby.
Okay, well, I'm going to be showing you a video from the conference. We are selling the videos from the conference, all 59 of them, ranging in length from 6 minutes to a little over an hour. And some of them sections are group discussions. In other words, we had a program with about 33, 34, about over 50 speakers, presentations. And then we had the group discussions, and we realized that that is just too valuable not to include in the package. So it's really quite a lot. It's about 25 hours worth of material to watch. And so if you're interested in buying the whole set, they're available now through our conference website. And the web address is emfconference2021.com. And that email will show at the beginning of what I'm about to show you. And what I'm about to show you is a 34-minute presentation as part of this event that was made by Dr. Magda Havas. Dr. Havas is in Canada. She's a professor emeriti, retired now, that means, from Trent University in Peterborough. She's been working on this issue also over 25 years, and I've known her about that long.
Thanks
And
for listening, honey.
she's passionate about this issue. She's published research. She gives talks all over the world to groups. She gives expert witness testimony. And she's, as a former college professor who taught a course on EMF for 25 years, she's developed a real good ability to get this information across very well, as educators are supposed to do. So the program is called Radio Frequency and 5G. It's an explanation of the science, as well as things people can do to protect themselves and what type of settings they need to be especially careful about when using wireless technology. That are their home, their workplace, their children's classrooms. These are places where we spend a lot of our time, and it doesn't have to be wireless, it could be wired. So that's a choice we're making. What's happening with 5G is involuntary, unfortunately, and with OTARD it's even worse, but we still are things we can do in our homes and with our kids to protect them. So that's what this 34-minute presentation is all about. So I have it all queued up, but Valerie, if I'm lucky, it'll actually show up. So I'm gonna go get it and pull it up.
And 5G. We are
There we
now
go.
turning our attention to radio frequency
Can
radiation.
you hear it okay?
The
Yeah.
key biological effects associated with
Thanks,
radio
Brett.
frequency
Yeah.
radiation include various cancers, the most common of which is a glioma brain tumor. Many studies are showing impaired reproduction with damage to sperm, miscarriages, and behavioral problems in offspring. And finally, there is electrohypersensitivity, which affects many systems in the body. Our greatest exposure to radio frequency radiation comes from wireless devices in the home, smart meters and smart appliances, Wi-Fi at school, work, and in the office, from nearby cell phone antennas and other antennas, and from neighbors in multi-unit dwellings. Fortunately, we have some control within our home. And what are some of the more common devices in our home? Wi-Fi, cordless phones, wireless baby monitors, wireless games, wireless home security systems. And some people have these devices emitting 24/7. In Europe, you can purchase cordless phones that emit radiation only when they are being used, and they have baby monitors that are sound activated, which means they do not emit any radiation until the infant makes a sound. In North America, these same devices emit microwave radiation constantly. We tried to bring some of these sound-activated baby monitors to North America, but it was illegal to import them. When we inquired, we were told that the signals interfere with FCC regulations. We already mentioned in last lecture that smart homes are electromagnetically unhygienic. Many wearables radiate electrosmog. The wireless earpiece is always in the same location, so your brain cells closest to the earpiece are exposed to the highest levels. At the very least, if you have only one earpiece, it is important to change ears to allow your cells to repair any damage that may have been caused by the radiation. The mommy cell phone for children should be banned unless it is radiating only when in use. And while people are trying to maintain their health by exercising and getting plenty of sleep, these devices may be interfering with that process. This is how kids spend their time socializing. This provides too much screen time and not enough outdoor activity or face-to-face interactions. If you read the user manual on cell phones and tablets, many provide a warning to keep it a certain distance from your body. The recommended distance for cell phones ranges from 1.5 to 2.5 centimeters, and for tablets, it is about 20 centimeters. Mercury passes through the blood-brain barrier, and it can be passed via the placenta onto the fetus and affect fetal development. Mercury interacts synergistically with radio frequencies. Several studies have documented that radio frequency radiation mobilizes mercury from fillings. In this study, published in 2008, after dental mercury amalgam restoration, subjects were exposed to magnetic resonance imaging in phase 1 of the study, and a different group was exposed to mobile phone radiation in phase 2. Both groups released more mercury into their saliva or urine than the controls. Here are the results for female university students who used mobile phones, red bar. The mercury content of urine was much higher than the controls, shown in gray, who were not using a mobile phone. And this was statistically significant on day 2, 3, and 4 after dental amalgam restoration. The same authors hypothesized in this 2016 publication that if dental mercury is mobilized by radio frequency radiation in a pregnant woman, this could increase the fetal mercury load, resulting in neurological and hormonal disruptions and possibly contributing to autistic spectrum disorder. Others will be talking about exposure instead of holding your cell phone, place it in the bowl and this will at the base of the phone. I've tried it and it works. You can also connect your iPhone, iPad, iPod to Ethernet with special adapters and avoid the radiation. Details are provided at the Electrosensitive Society website at the bottom of this slide, and it will be presented at the conference in January. A good mantra, if it's stationary, wire it, and that applies to smart meters, smart appliances, printers, keyboards, home phones, and there are several options for wired internet, from Ethernet cables to fiber optics to power line adapters. Use wired instead of wireless whenever possible. Now let's turn our attention to smart meters. What is smart about a smart meter? Smart simply means two-way communication. It can be wired or wireless. Here is a simplified example of how a smart metering system works. You have a smart meter on your home. It communicates with a receiver on a nearby hydro pole. The message is sent to the utility, and they can then communicate with your smart meter and turn appliances on or off. However, some systems use a radio frequency mesh. In this type of system, your smart meter is communicating with other smart meters and not just with the utility. As a result, your smart meter is working overtime and your home is receiving a lot more radiation. It's important to find out which of these two types of smart meters you have on your home. And if we have a mesh system, this is how much radiation is being transmitted and how frequently. This smart meter was placed on this house a few months earlier, and you can see that the shrub near the smart meter is beginning to die back. It was completely dead within a year. Here's another example, courtesy of Dr. Carl Murray, showing that radiation emitted constantly by a smart meter in a mesh network. The maximum radiation at 4 feet was 38 microwatts per centimeter squared. To put this in perspective, heart palpitations have been documented at 5 microwatts per centimeter squared, and the Federal Communication Commission guidelines for 900 megahertz frequency is 600 microwatts per centimeter squared. Smart meters and smart appliances are making people sick, and we now have smart meters not only for electricity, but for water and gas as well. Smart meters emit microwave radiation. They generate dirty electricity, and they talk to smart appliances, all of which increase our exposure to electrosmog. This visual is one of the better representations of the difference between an analog meter and a smart meter. You see an apartment building in a house with an analog meter in this slide. Here we have the same two buildings, but with a smart meter. The red represents dirty electricity, and the orange represents microwave radiation. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine recommended in 2012 that accommodations be made for health considerations regarding smart meters and other devices emitting electrosmog. That we recognize electro-hypersensitivity as a growing health problem worldwide, and that we consider using wired technology for data transmission. Many smart meters are not UL approved, and none have CSA approval that I'm aware of. And smart meters have been known to cause fires. People are complaining that their smart meter readings are inaccurate. Here is an example of how the readings changed after an analog meter was replaced by a smart meter. If these higher readings are due to interference, then placing a choke on the conduit near the smart meter can reduce this interference and save the homeowner some money. Radiation from a smart meter can be shielded and filtered, but these are both band-aid solutions. If you plan to shield your smart meter, it is important not to shield it completely, because if it is not able to provide the information to the utility, they will send out a repair crew and remove your shielding. The real solution is to wire smart meters and smart appliances. If it doesn't move, it doesn't need to be wireless. An excellent resource is Tim Sheckley's book, Reinventing Wires, The Future of Landlines and Networks. And you should be able to get a free copy of this book on the internet or from the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy in Washington, D.C. Now let's turn our attention to Wi-Fi in schools. I'm deeply concerned about Wi-Fi in schools and the unnecessary radiation of students and teachers. The two hotspots in a school are near the base station and near the computer or tablet connected to the base station. Wi-Fi is much more dangerous at school than in the home. The base stations are more powerful. There are more access points, more users. It's always on. And students sitting next to their neighbors would be exposed to additional radiation from computers and tablets. In Canada, we have about 8 sudden cardiac arrests among young people each year. When Wi-Fi was introduced to schools in Simcoe County, a number of students started complaining of feeling unwell in school and having heart palpitations while in school, but not at home. One of the parents, a reporter, went around and got this information. In Simcoe County, 2008, 10-year-old girl dies in gym, Wi-Fi in school. 2009, 13-year-old boy revived with a defibrillator. He now has a pacemaker. 2010, 15-year-old boy revived with CPR. In MTV school, 6-year-old girl, musical heart, headaches, dizziness, only at school. 12-year-old boy with tachycardia, which is a rapid heart rate. 12-year-old girl, nausea, vomiting, no fever, insomnia, blurred vision, tachycardia, only in school. And 13-year-old boy, heart pounding, insomnia, headaches. They moved away and his symptoms abated. This is not psychosomatic. I work with people who are electrically hypersensitive, and they complain of heart palpitations, arrhythmias, pain or pressure in the chest, high and low blood pressure. Many feel as though they are having a heart attack or an anxiety attack. So we did a proof of concept study and asked the question, does radiation from a cordless phone affect the heart? We decided to use a cordless phone because when you plug the base station of a cordless phone into an electrical outlet, it radiates whether or not anyone is using it. And we wanted to know if this radiation affected the heart. We used 2.4 gigahertz frequency, that is the same as Wi-Fi. Our exposure was at 3 microwatts per centimeter squared. The guideline at this frequency is 1,000 microwatts per centimeter squared. So the government is telling us we can be exposed to levels as high as 1,000 without having any adverse health effects. Our exposure in the study was less than 1% of federal guidelines. Duration of exposure was between 3 to 4 minutes. In our study, normally the exposure is averaged over a time period, and this is 6 minutes in Canada and 30 minutes in the United States. This was a double-blind study. Neither the person being tested nor the doctor evaluating the results knew when the cell phone was turned on or off. I'm going to show you results from 2 subjects. This is subject A. This subject is exposed to 3-minute time intervals to either sham exposure or exposure to the radiation from a cordless phone. The numbers in white represent heartbeats for each interval. You can see the subject was exposed during intervals 3 and 4, and there is no change in the heart rate or the irregularity of the heartbeats.
3 and 4
Is not
change
yet.
in the heart rate
Has a very different response. This person was exposed to radiation during intervals 3 and 5.
This person
Heart rate increased rapidly and became irregular. Also showed that there was a sympathetic upregulation and a parasympathetic downregulation. This is a typical stress response. This person is electrically hypersensitive. Here we have Caveman Bob. He had a hard day at work with lots of stressors, and he is going to recover in his cave. This is Bob's cave mate, and she will take care of the problem. What we have here is an example of short-term acute stress, and this doesn't cause a problem. As a matter of fact, this is healthy. Bob has time to engage his parasympathetic nervous system that helps him rest, digest, and heal. Here we have Bob's twin brother, also called Bob, who has had an equally stressful day. However, this is what Bob comes home to, so he doesn't have time to recover. This is an example of long-term chronic stress that leads to illness. This is the equivalent of having a cell phone tower near your home or Wi-Fi in your home. If you are in sympathetic overload on a constant basis, you will not be able to heal properly, and it's quite likely that you will become ill over time. Now let's turn our attention to the school that has a Wi-Fi in the classroom and a cell phone tower nearby. This is going to cause physiological stress to some percentage of the student and teacher population. That stress is going to adversely affect the body, the mind, behavior, and emotions. And then that student goes back to school. Now we expect these students to perform well because we have given them all the technological advantages. Unfortunately, we have placed them in a toxic environment. Out-of-hospital cardiac deaths seem to be increasing among young adults ages 15 to 34. During the period 1989 to 90 and versus the period 1997-98, an 8-year interval, age-adjusted out-of-hospital cardiac death rates increased in both men and women between 11 and 33%. In a separate study, sudden cardiac attributed to cardiovascular event among athletes is also increasing. In this conference on the biological effects and health implications of microwave radiation, scientists provide this warning. In the interest of occupational hygiene, investigators have recommended that cardiovascular abnormalities be used as screening criteria to exclude people from occupations involving radio frequency exposures. In 1969, the government knew that radio frequencies affect the heart and that some people are more susceptible than others. I strongly believe that students need to be screened at school to ensure they do not have an underlying heart condition that may be exacerbated with Wi-Fi exposure. According to the National Stroke Association, strokes are on the rise among young adults. Here is an example of why this might be the case. We measured live blood and published the results in 2013. Radiation from wireless technology affects the blood, the heart, and the autonomic nervous system. Here is an example of how it affects the blood. We took a drop of blood, placed it on a slide, and looked at it under the microscope. This is an image of my live blood in an electromagnetically clean environment. And this is what my blood looks like after 10-minute exposure to Wi-Fi. What you see here are red blood cells sticking together, and this is called rouleau formation. The consequences of this are sluggish circulation, lower oxygen transport, reduced waste removal. The symptoms include some combination of headaches, fatigue, dizziness, difficulty concentrating, and the worst possible case is a heart attack or a stroke. Dr. Stephen Sinatra, an internationally recognized cardiologist, said that our blood should have the consistency of red wine, but what he notices in his patients is that their blood resembles ketchup. This is rouleau. And as I mentioned earlier, there are alternatives to wireless: Ethernet cables, power line adapters, and fiber optics. It would be in the best interest of communities to develop a fiber optic highway for fast, secure, and safe service with much less radiation. Next, we are going to turn our attention to cell phone antennas. Years from now, we are going to look back and ask ourselves, what were we thinking, placing cell towers so close to homes, schools, and hospitals? Here we have a cellular base station on top of a building. It consists of a tower for support. In Europe, they call this a mast. There are antennas for both transmitting and receiving signals, and there is a cabin for the electrical supplies. This tower has 3 types of antennas. The antennas that look like poles are omnidirectional and radiate in all directions like a light bulb. The dish-shaped antennas are point-to-point like a laser pointer and must be within line of sight of each other. The rectangular antennas, like a flashlight, radiate in a sector, usually 120 degrees, and are common along highways. When we talk about cells, there are different geographical sizes. We have the world cell that relies on satellites. Macro cells that can transmit information up to 20 kilometers. Micro cells that transmit up to 1 kilometer. Pico cells that transmit about 100 meters. This would include your cordless phone and your wireless baby monitor. And femtocells that transmit up to 10 meters, and this would be your Bluetooth devices. When the industry learned that people didn't want a big tower near their home, the telecom fellas got together and began to disguise towers as natural objects that we would normally see in the environment. Here are more stealth antennas. Distance is your friend. Ideally, you should be at least 500 meters from a cell tower, and I used to recommend at least 2 kilometers from radar and broadcast antennas, although as they make them more powerful, further away may be safer. Now let's turn our attention to 5G and millimeter waves. What is 5G? 5G refers to 5th generation communication technology. It follows the previous generations, but is much faster with speeds of 1 gigabit per second. I currently get 500 megabits per second, or half a gigabit, on my 4G fiber optics connected to my home, and I don't need anything faster than that. 5G differs considerably from previous generations, and it is going to evolve, so few people know what we are truly in for. What we do know is that 5G will not replace 4G technology. Indeed, it will intensify our use of 4G and expose us to additional frequencies and higher intensities. 5G will use multiple frequencies that fall into 3 categories: sub 1 gigahertz, sub 6 gigahertz, and millimeter waves. And it will involve the densification of small cell antennas. So expect a small cell antenna to come to your neighborhood and possibly to come to your home. 5G infrastructure consists of satellites, macro cell sites, small cells, and fiber optics. Fiber optics are the safest with no radiation. Satellites are relatively safe provided we have low exposure from them. Macro cell sites are dangerous near the antennas. And small cells are of greatest concern because these are going to be near where people live. There will be both winners and losers with 5G. The driving force is the amount of money some companies will make, and the downside is that this technology is going to significantly increase our exposure to microwave and millimeter wave radiation. We are having a love affair with wireless. It started with cell phones, but we have no choice as to where towers are placed. Then we had Wi-Fi, but we have no choice about Wi-Fi in schools. Smart meters and smart appliances, this is something that the electric utilities have foisted on us. We have no choice about smart meters and smart appliances in our home. Both are dumb ideas and they are dangerous. 5G is now something that the telecom providers are insisting we need for faster download speeds and the Internet of Things. We have no choice about the placement of these small cells and how many satellites they are going to be deploying. 5G is going to expose us to more radiation when current levels are already harmful, and we have no choice in the matter. There are many key concerns about wireless smart technology. Health effects, addiction, social skills, safety, security, privacy, effects on plants and animals, energy consumption, and global warming. I'm going to talk about a few of these very briefly. We have evidence that Wi-Fi radiation interferes with plant growth. We exposed seeds to Wi-Fi radiation on the left and compared the growth to a control population on the right that was not exposed to radiation. The control plants were much larger at the end of the 30-day experiment than the exposed plants. The Wi-Fi exposed plants didn't have a root system, and these plants could not survive in nature. We also tested the response of bees. Here we have 2 colonies. The hive at the top left is the control hive that was shielded from radiation with special paint and with metallic tape. The hive in the middle of this slide was exposed to radiation from Wi-Fi router, cordless phone, and a wireless baby monitor. And here you can see how agitated the bees are. They began to swarm after a few minutes of exposure and became very aggressive. And here are the bees in the control hive only a few meters away. They are more placid and seem undisturbed. I'm now going to shift to concerns about privacy. The headbands these students are wearing are monitoring their brainwave activity. Each band has a colored light in the front. White means the student is offline, blue means the student is distracted, Green, the student is focused, and red, the student is deeply focused. The information is sent to the teacher's tablet, and then the teacher sends the information to the parent's cell phone. I can only imagine how much this increases microwave radiation in the classroom, making it difficult for students to focus. In China, you can make a purchase without cash or a credit card. Instead, they use facial recognition. And with facial recognition, they don't need an ID chip since the cameras will identify people even in a crowd, as you can see here. Here's the facial recognition map of the world. Green represents countries that currently use facial recognition. You'll notice that very few countries or communities are banning this technology. We are promised that 5G will bring us driverless cars, smart homes, smart cities, remote surgery. Unfortunately, it is probably going to make a lot of us sick. Currently, millimeter waves are used at airports. We have the simple metal scanner, the millimeter wave scanner. Employees are asked to calibrate these scanners, with each employee being exposed about 20 times a day. These airport employees are complaining of illness, but little is being done to help them. Another use of microwave millimeter waves is the active denial system used by the US military. They use 95 gigahertz frequency that has a range of 500 meters. The beam is directed at a person or a crowd, and it instantly heats the skin, causing intense pain. The beam damages eyes and testicles and is likely to have other effects that we don't yet know about. We can't end this lecture without considering guidelines. Here we have biological effects shown in red and guidelines for radiofrequency radiation shown in purple. Note that this is using a log scale, so each line differs by a factor of 10. What is most unusual about this graph is that guidelines vary more than 5 orders of magnitude. This widespread in guidelines is unheard of in chemical toxicology. Also, the guidelines do not protect against the health effects noted here, which occur at much lower intensities than the guidelines. In some of my presentations, someone in the audience will say, if this was true, they would have told us. In 1971, the US government released a report with more than 2,000 publications on the biological and health effects of microwave radiation. You can get information from this report on my website and on zoriglazier.com website. I'll provide more information later. More recently, a group of international scientists in this field sent an appeal to the World Health Organization and to the United Nations asking for safer guidelines, among other requests. Cell phone providers are asking people to keep the phone at least 1.5 centimeters from the body, and tablets at least 20 centimeters from the body. Insurance agencies are not insuring against health effects from wireless technology. Various medical academies are stating that radio frequency guidelines do not protect children. And some governments are removing and banning Wi-Fi in schools. They are telling us. We aren't listening. This is where we are at present. I show people who have an adverse response to electrosmog as being under the waterline. So what does the future hold? If we do nothing about guidelines, if we allow Wi-Fi to be installed in schools, in parks, on buses, on airplanes, and in hospitals, if we have wireless smart meters, smart appliances, and smart homes, With 5G everywhere and satellites bombarding us from space, and with driverless cars, and with wireless wearables, I doubt the society will survive. Far too many people are going to become sick. And that lone person who has his head above the waterline isn't going to be able to support the rest of us. Alternatively, we can establish radio frequency free zones, green zones. We can lower guidelines. We can provide wired internet access everywhere, especially in schools. We can convert wired smart meters and wired smart appliances. We can place a moratorium on 5G. Then we can reduce exposure to tolerable and possibly no effect levels. Remember, if it doesn't move, it doesn't need to be wireless.
Okay, that's it.
Libby, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. She just covered so many of the important points. I want to give a brief recap before we open it up to Q&A for anybody who wants to say. So just remember these OTARD companies are on the ground right now in Tucson and Phoenix, and we're working on a huge campaign. There is a flyer. It's in the chat box that you can distribute to your neighborhoods. We will be sharing 5gcrisis.org's No OTARD pledge that you can share with your neighbors as well. We are trying to call a statewide emergency meeting on May 6th of all the organizations that could rally around this, give a warning to people. It's all part of the same scenario that we're fighting. And any more organizations you can think of that we can invite, let me know and we will send that video to them. May 1st is the fundraiser for Arizona Stands United. So we'll let you know if we're able to have an alternative date for our monthly event. And Andy Topolsky is still looking for stories of people who have been injured that he could interview or have had collateral damage, had to sell their home, whatever. And also any pictures of plants that are dying, like we saw in the presentation. Again, Libby, thank you so much. That was truly excellent. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I will say that video is terrifying.
I just want to say something. I showed this video because I have ownership of it. I rented it through Vimeo. If you don't know what Vimeo is all about, you don't actually own these. You rent them from them. Even though I made them, I still rent them myself. But I have hard copy. But any of you that wants to purchase this set of videos, you can do just what I did. You can show them on Zoom to a group of people and have a conversation. We really want people to take advantage of this. There are a lot of excellent videos on different aspects, on the science, on medical treatment, on EMF assessment and policy that I think people would enjoy. It depends on your audience, but I chose this one because it was short. And Meg does an excellent lecture with lots of interesting graphics. And she covers radio frequency and microwave and millimeter waves, which is on our mind right now because of 5G. That's why I chose it.
Thank you. So two thoughts. One is how much does it cost? And also I want to recommend Dr. Russell Whitty's video on YouTube, The Body Electric, another excellent presentation. So Libby, what's the cost to get this Vimeo?
The cost for the complete set of the Vimeos, 59 videos in this package, is $159.
Okay, great. And our single videos like the one you just showed, can they be purchased individually?
No, not individually. You only can buy it as a set. But what I'm saying is if somebody went on this together, you could get together and show these videos to other people, to groups as part of your meetings. And that way, not everybody has to go out and buy one of these. You could share them.
That's an excellent idea. And Dominique is asking how we get access to the link to purchase it. Is that on your website, EMF Conference?
It's on the EMF Conference website, emfconference2021.com. And we're going to be offering 2 online courses for continuing medical education credit, up to 24.5 continuing medical education credits starting May 1st, which will be all the program except for 5 talks that were accredited by the American Council on Medical Education credit, CME. So if any health practitioners, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, osteopaths, and nurses are interested in getting credit for taking the whole course, you can do it that way too. At your own speed. We're going to be offering that course for a year.
It'd be phenomenal if everybody let their healthcare practitioner know about this. Fantastic. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All righty. Well, thank you all so much for coming. We'll be sending out updates on the campaign to alert neighborhoods about OTARD. Going to need your help to get the word out and just get people also just to join this organization. Ben, any last thoughts or comments?
Nope. Thank you, Libby, for sharing that with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Great. All right. Well, we'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks, and you'll hear from us on email. So have a great night, everybody, and thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.